Hello and welcome to this Down Syndrome and Intellectual Disability Queensland education webinar on hypotonia and fatigue in the classroom. My name is Kath Bunny and I am an education consultant from Down Syndrome and Intellectual Disability Queensland. DSIDQ is the peak body for intellectual disability. The education team at DSIDQ provides services and resources to support educators of students with Down syndrome and/or intellectual disability in kindergarten or school. This webinar is supported by the Queensland Government's Department of Education through their NSS&O funding. Today's session is designed to give you a clear understanding of hypotonia and fatigue, help you recognise the signs in your students, and most importantly, share practical strategies that you can implement immediately in your classroom. Our goal is to support inclusive learning and help every student succeed. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional and historic custodians of the land from which I present today, the Gimoi Walabari Yindinji. I extend my acknowledgement to all First Nations people here today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I recognise their continuing connection to this land where we work, play and learn. So by the end of this presentation, you will recognise the signs and impacts of hypotonia and fatigue in the classroom, learn practical evidence-based strategies to support students experiencing hypotonia and fatigue, and gain confidence in creating inclusive, well-managed learning environments that promote participation and success for students with hypotonia and fatigue. Hypotonia or low muscle tone is a condition characterised by decreased tension in the muscles when they are at rest, making movement and posture control more difficult. So unlike muscle weakness, which refers to a reduced agility to generate force, hypotonia describes the baseline state of muscles, which may feel unusually soft or floppy, or less resistant to passive movement. And hypotonia can affect skeletal muscles, the mouth, the hands, the arms, the legs, the torso, as well as the smooth involuntary muscles like the digestive, urinary and respiratory systems. And students with hypotonia may not necessarily be weak in the traditional sense, but often lack the muscle tone needed to stabilise and support movement effectively. And hypotonia can also cause hyperflexibility. Two different things. Hypotonia can be present from birth, which we call congenital, or develop later in life as a result of an injury, illness, or certain medical conditions such as MS or Parkinson's. It's not considered a diagnosis in itself, but rather a clinical feature that can occur in a wide range of conditions, including Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophies, ASD, and various neuromuscular or genetic disorders. There's evidence by multiple research projects that children with ADHD and ASD have worse gross motor and fine motor skills than their typically developing peers. In a 2021 study, the researchers suggested that hypotonia is a recognisable early marker for autism spectrum disorder, which I'm sure many of you have recognised. They describe hypotonia as a red flag for ASD, as most children diagnosed with autism may also have other developmental related conditions such as poor muscle tone. Reduced tone may affect posture, balance, coordination and endurance, making it more difficult for children to maintain stability and carry out movements smoothly. Everyday tasks that require sustained muscle effort, such as climbing chairs, running or sitting upright at a desk, can be noticeably more challenging. Its presentation can vary considerably, both in severity and the ways it influences daily functioning. So here is a short video from mandibellar physiotherapist Kerry Reid explaining what low tone is.
I just wanted to explain to you what professionals like me mean by low tone and how that affects your baby, and does it stay with them through life, and what is low tone? Well, muscles are made up of bundles and bundles of fibers. So if you think really complex wiring with masses of fibers running in a bundle, and then those bundles form together to make the muscles. So some muscles are big and round, some muscles are thin and flat, but they've all got these fibers. And down to the minute level, they're called myofibrils. So when muscles contract, what happens is the myofibrils to contract, they slide in on each other. And when they relax, they slide back. And they also have another function when they can kind of play out and they slide right out. So when you've got low muscle tone, your myofibrils sit like this. They don't sit in the middle where they're ready to contract. They have to move from a position here when the brain sends the signal, oh, we're going to move now. They have to get up to ready position here before they then contract. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, there's a delay. And we tend to think, oh, it's an intellectual impairment, there's a delay. But there's a physical delay because your child has got to get to the start position before they even start. And we see this through life, that there are other factors that affect that delay. But I don't think anyone ever really tells us there's a physical delay because they've got to get into ready position to start with.
So how can hypotonia affect the body? So it can affect the body in the following ways, but this list is not exhaustive. So if we start from the top, our head and neck. So weak neck muscles can make it difficult to hold the head up, causing poor head control in infants and affecting overall posture and stability. The ears, the eustachian tubes, reduce muscle tone around the eustachian tubes leads to poor drainage and increased susceptibility to chronic ear infections. We think about vision. Weak eye muscles can lead to difficulty tracking objects, problems with eye coordination, potential strabismus, which is a wandering eye, or nystagmus, which is those involuntary quick eye movements, and also challenges with visual motor integration. Hypotonia can lead to swallowing, which difficulty coordinating the swallow reflex, challenges with feeding, especially in infants, increased risk of aspiration, and may affect the ability to handle different food textures. In the lungs, weak respiratory muscles can lead to shallow breathing, reduced cough effectiveness, increased risk of respiratory infections, and in severe cases, breathing difficulties requiring support. We move down to the stomach, slow gut mobility leading to constipation, delayed gastric emptying, reflux issues, and general digestive discomfort due to weak, smooth muscle tone in the gastrointestinal tract. Down to the bladder, weak pelvic floor and bladder muscles can lead to poor bladder control, frequent accidents, delayed toilet training, and difficulty sensing the need to urinate. And all the way down to our legs, the floppy appearance with excessive range of motion at the joints, delayed walking milestones, difficulty standing or maintaining balance, fatigue with physical activity, and challenges with coordination and stability. When fatigued, you'll often notice poor posture, with the students slumping at their desks or leaning heavily on the table for support. Sitting upright is actually hard work for them, so they tire quickly during activities that need sustained sitting or standing. Fine and gross motor tasks like writing, using scissors, handling small objects, or even moving from class to class can be really challenging. They might work more slowly or get tired from just handwriting tasks. And you'll see them needing help with everyday tasks like opening lunch containers, doing up zippers or buttons, and keeping their materials organised. So I'm sure you've all had these students in your class. These self-care challenges can also impact their independence in the classroom. And what we're talking about today, hypotonia and fatigue. So they may experience fatigue after minimal activity because, as Kerry said in that video, they have to get ready to start before it's ready to start. They have to be in touch with their body. They may appear to struggle with attention, but maintaining posture and focus requires significant physical effort, which can quickly exhaust them. During PE or on the playground, they may hang back from activities like climbing, running, or sports because their coordination and balance are affected and they tire much faster than their peers. And subtle signs of disengagement may include withdrawing from group work, avoiding eye contact, asking for repeated instruction, or appearing frustrated, anxious, or irritable as the physical and cognitive demands of the classroom take their toll. So have a little think about your students and if you recognise any of these traits in them. Okay, let's do an activity. So this is whole arm versus fine motor writing activity. So we'll try this activity to feel like what writing is like for a student with hypotonia, and then we'll move on in our next slides to some classroom strategies. Okay, first thing, so write your name as you normally would. So grab a pen or just pretend. And notice how your fingers and your hands do most of the work while your shoulder stays fairly still. Now this time, keep your wrist and your fingers stiff, but try writing your name again using only your shoulder and your whole arm. So make the letters bigger so you can move your arm freely. So take a moment to notice, how did that feel? Was it harder to control? Did it take more effort? Most people find it awkward and tiring. The writing is bigger, less controlled, and it takes more energy. And children have to do this while listening, like doing a secondary task, like listening to a list of numbers or then instructions. So if you think about just how hard they have to concentrate to get their wrist and their fingers into action. And students with hypotonia, they often write this way because weak postural and shoulder muscles make it hard to isolate those fine motor movements. And their trunk and their shoulder muscles aren't strong enough to provide a stable base. So the movement comes from higher up, the shoulder or even the torso rather than the fingers. Instead of fine controlled movements, we see these large sweeping motions, which can make writing generally exhausting. So understanding this makes sense of why some students fatigue quickly or produce messy work. It's not about effort or motivation, it's from where their movement originates. I remember having this boy in my class and he would write one letter per page. He used to drive me mad. But now that I'm older and wiser, I know why. So using supporting tools like a slopeboard, easel or whiteboard can be very helpful. And writing with a marker as they glide more easy than pen or pencil on paper. That reduces fine motor effort and allows for bigger, more comfortable movements. So the vertical surface of an easel or a slope board naturally supports posture and core engagement, provides clear visual feedback, and makes it easier to see and correct larger writing. And many students also find this more engaging and motivating, which reduces frustration and encourages participation. I don't know how you feel about it, but some people let them write on the windows with those chalk markers, and that's a bundle of fun. So although whiteboards can make writing easier, they don't replace the need to practice smaller fine motor movements. They provide a low effort option that supports participation and reduces fatigue as the day progresses. So the strategies you can use to support hypotonia in your classroom, there's quite a few. So seating and positioning, provide chairs with appropriate back support or use cushions for better posture as recommended by the OT and the physio. It's always good to chat with our OTs and our physios because they know better than us how the body works. You use slant boards or angled desks for writing tasks. Ensure feet can touch the floor or use a footrest or blocks for stability. Back in the old days, we used to use phone books, stack them up. They don't have phone books anymore, I don't think. For fine motor support, use pencil grips or thicker pencils with whiteboard markers. Allow extra time or reduce writing requirements. Offer alternatives to handwriting like typing, voice to text or oral responses. Provide pre-cut materials or use adaptive scissors and reduce the amount of cutting, as usually cutting is not being assessed. So think about what you're teaching and assessing and think about what they actually need to do. Get those cognitive verbs out of the curriculum. And use larger manipulatives like larger blocks rather than the little MAB ones for hands-on activities. Breaks and movement are important, so build in frequent movement and brain breaks to prevent fatigue, such as interoception activities from the Student Wellbeing Hub. So that QR code there will take you to the Wellbeing Hub, which provides little 1-minute videos on movement breaks and interoception activities. It's really good. It's free. Australian designed. So allow position change during lessons, such as standing, stretching, moving to different areas, and break long tasks into smaller chunks with rest periods. And these aren't hard adjustments to make, but they could make the world of difference for a little one with fatigue. With gross motor, inform the PE teacher about the student's hypotonia, because, you know, PE teachers could have 500 children, so they may not notice in their busy lessons. So they can modify PE activities to include more supportive options. Allow the use of walls or railings for support during movement. And also with the gross motor movements, provide extra time for transitions between classes. In your classroom environment, place frequently used materials within easy reach of the child. Use Velcro or non-slip mats to stabilise materials, and provide organisational supports like label bins and visual schedules, and keep pathways clear to prevent tripping. And academic modifications. So complete the most important academic tasks and assessments early in the day when they have the most energy. Give extra time for task completion. Give the option of typing, and don't forget those NAPLAN adjustments of a scribe if they usually use a scribe, or extra time. Self-care support for younger children, practice opening containers when it's not lunchtime to reduce stress. because the poor old prep teachers, when beginning of the year, all they do is tie shoelaces and undo lunch boxes. And build in extra time for self-care tasks such as toileting or zipping up their jumper. Work with occupational and physiotherapists to implement these strategies and communicate regularly with families about what works and what they're no longer using. And educate classmates about the differences to build understanding and support. And the key, what we have to keep in our heads are these students aren't being lazy or difficult. Their bodies are working much harder than others just to do everyday tasks. So patience, understanding and appropriate supports make all the difference. Now we're going to move on to fatigue. So understanding fatigue. Fatigue is more than just being tired. Tiredness is a normal feeling that improves with rest or sleep. You feel tired after a long day, get a good night's sleep and feel refreshed. But fatigue is a persistent, overwhelming sense of exhaustion that doesn't improve significantly with rest. It is a deep whole body exhaustion that affects your ability to function normally. So imagine having fatigue all day, every day. That would be exhausting. So hypotonia is not the only reason for fatigue. The student could have a medical condition such as a heart issue, asthma, sleep apnea, mental health or social emotional issues. Family breakups could be very distressing. Decreased immunity, a virus or infection, or they could be impacted by the heat or the humidity. We have to think broadly when we think of fatigue. And also fatigue can be multi-causative. When students experience fatigue, it can appear as disengagement or lack of effort, but there's usually much more happening beneath the surface. And fatigue can affect children in multiple ways, and recognising these signs allow us to respond with understanding rather than frustration. When we understand why, the behaviour makes much more sense. Physical fatigue shows up in the body for students with hypotonia or for those who simply tire from maintaining posture and moving between activities. You might observe them slumping at their desks or legs wrapped around the chair legs, difficulty sitting upright, reduced participation in physical tasks or a clear need to rest or lie down. Their bodies may be simply exhausted from the effort required to stay engaged. And interestingly, you wouldn't think so, but some students do the opposite, moving or fidgeting or even eloping as a way of self-regulating or avoiding further physical or cognitive effort. So you'd think if they are fatigued, they would just rest. But I think I'm one of those fidgeters to try and stay upright as well. Cognitive fatigue occurs when the child's brain has been working hard at sustained thinking, problem solving and processing information. While hypotonia doesn't directly cause cognitive fatigue, the extra physical effort required to maintain posture and participation in activities can lead to overall exhaustion, which in turn affects thinking and learning. And you may notice signs such as reduced focus, slower processing speed, and difficulty retaining new information. Children may make errors, struggle with executive functions like planning and organisation, and just appear like they're no longer getting it. This is not a reflection or understanding or motivation, but rather the effects of cognitive fatigue on their performance. It's also visual, auditory and sensory fatigue. So they can be part of sensory overload, which occurs when the brain receives more sensory input than it can effectively process. Constant visual and auditory demands, such as reading, watching the board, and listening for extended periods, can overwork the sensory systems. And that's what our classrooms are all about, aren't they? Just that constant demands to be engaged. And as a result, children you might see them rubbing their eyes, complaining of headaches, have difficulty tracking text, miss verbal instructions, or even seem zoned out. And some may also cover their ears or display other sensory avoidance behaviours as their nervous system becomes overwhelmed. And the cumulative effect, I've got some tricky words this afternoon. So this is where things become particularly challenging. As the day progresses, different types of fatigue can build up on each other, creating a progressive decline in performance, behaviours of concern, and other emotional regulation. A student who begins the morning engaged and capable may show increased difficulty by afternoon. You'll see their handwriting deteriorate, participation declines, and they may withdraw from group tasks or become irritable and restless. I'm sure you can all think of a child like that. You may see more errors, slower task completion, headaches, emotional outbursts, impulsive behaviours, leaving the classroom, or complete withdrawal as their energy reserves become depleted. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the spoons analogy, which is often called spoon theory. It's a metaphor used to explain the limited energy or capacity that people with chronic illnesses, disability, or mental health conditions have for daily tasks. It was created by a lady called Christine when a friend asked her what it was like to have lupus. So she grabbed the spoons from nearby tables to demonstrate. The basic concept is everyone starts their day with a certain number of spoons, which are units of energy. And healthy people have an abundance of spoons and rarely need to think about them. But people with chronic conditions have fewer spoons and they've got to ration them out carefully. So every activity costs spoons. Getting out of bed, showering, making food, going to work, socialising. Once you're out of spoons, you're done for the day. You just cannot push through. Sometimes you can borrow spoons from tomorrow, but you pay for it later. You have to make constant decisions about what's worth spending a spoon on. For example, a healthy person mightn't think twice about showering, getting dressed, and making breakfast. But someone with limited spoons might have to choose, do I shower today or save that energy for my doctor's appointment? And people connect with this analogy because it shows what invisible exhaustion and constant mental effort feels like for those with chronic conditions. Children with hypotonia, particularly those with Down syndrome or another intellectual disability, may not have the capacity to recognise that they are running out of spoons or to ration them. At school, with lots of external demands placed on them, it may use up all of their spoons quite early in the day. Because hypotonia can look different from one child to another, it's important to pay attention to patterns rather than those once-off moments. So notice where and when the fatigue seems to set in. Does it happen during writing tasks or after sport or later in the day? And are there activities that seem to drain the child's energy faster than others? So keeping brief, structured notes can really help. Jot down what you observe, when it happens, and how long it takes the child to recover. Over time, this information can reveal valuable insights about what supports are most effective. It also gives you a clear record to share when working with families or support teams to adjust classroom expectations and routines. My son actually has a rare disease and has hypotonia as well as hypermobility. And I remember when we were trying to work through our maze of doctors, how valuable the teacher's notes were on just that when he was fatiguing and everything. So our colleague Denise has developed, it's like a checklist to help you recognise and track the stages of fatigue, enabling you to support students in re-energising before that fatigue really sets in. So you can book an ID8 consult to discuss your student's specific case of hypotonia and fatigue to get access to this resource. It'll come as one of your resources after your consult. So this resource will take you through the 4 stages of fatigue, their indicators, and the strategies to support the student at each stage. Stage 1 is the early indicators, the subtle signs such as increased slouching or leaning on the desk, chair or furniture, those compensatory seating positions, like I said before, hooking the ankles around the legs of the chair, try and prop themselves up, tucking one leg up underneath them, or those W sitting, or sitting with the knees really pushed together. Stage 2, that's what we call mid-stage fatigue. The functional impacts emerge, such as the increased need to sit, to lean, to lie down or move around, the increased distractibility or appearing zoned out. Stage 3, significant fatigue, compensatory behaviours such as those more pronounced motor signs, dragging their feet, excessive swaying of the hips and torso when moving, and excessive pronation of ankles. And stage 4, exhaustion shutdown mode can look like laying down on the floor, curling up in a chair, minimal or no verbal response, and complete refusal to comply or engage with others. When teaching students to be an advocate for their own fatigue, use the following points as a guide or individualise what works better. And we need to realise that the child has to learn how to advocate for themselves. So explicitly teach them to listen to their body first, to be upfront about the situation and what they are feeling, in a nice way, of course, and communicate clearly and simply using visuals or a predetermined signal or a keyword sign. Teach them to let go of guilt, as they can only do what they can do, so they shouldn't feel guilty about it, and stay consistent with their needs. There's 2 I need a break cards on there. One is for the student and the other's for the teacher. So one, the student can just give the teacher the green one, the I need a break card, or if the teacher's noticing, they can give the card, take a break, see you in 10 minutes. The fatigue thermometer there, that was also created by Denise, and the other one, how much energy am I using? The fatigue thermometer, students identify how they are feeling and then insert pictures of activities they can do to help themselves reorganise, just on to my right. And how much energy am I using? Students can track their energy level to determine which activities or time of day they fatigue and the level of fatigue. So if you have an ID8 consult, these are the examples of the resources we would provide. So acknowledge that it will take a lot of practice and repetition for students with intellectual disability to learn how to identify their own fatigue and advocate for themselves, and they'll need to be supported through this process. Here we go, strategies for your classroom. So schedule the demanding tasks earlier in the day. Students often have more energy in the morning, so plan the challenging lessons, tests or tasks when they're likely to be at their best. alternate between physical and sedentary tasks. So mix desk work with activities that involve movement, like stretching, hands-on projects, short walks to prevent fatigue from sitting for too long or overusing certain muscles. And those interoception, that QR code from before, they're great little quick breaks. They only take about 1 minute per video. And they're good from kinder kids right through to grade 12, because they have teenagers doing the higher level ones, so the kids can identify with that. Include short, discrete rest breaks. Allow the students to rest without drawing attention. Even just a minute or two to close their eyes, to stretch or shift position will help. And encourage pacing strategies. So let the students work at their own speed, break up longer tasks into smaller chunks, and remind them that it's okay to take small breaks as needed. And break tasks into smaller, manageable steps. So complex tasks can be overwhelming, and breaking them down makes them more achievable and reduces that constant mental and physical strain. And use movement or sensory breaks, so short activities like standing, stretching, fidget tools or sensory toys, not toys, tools we say, can help students re-energise and refocus for the next task. Offer multiple ways to respond. Allow students to demonstrate understanding in different formats, whether speaking, writing, drawing, using technology or hands-on projects. This reduces the pressure and fatigue from a single mode of response. Provide visual supports, so checklists, schedules, step-by-step prompts and visual reminders reduce the cognitive load and help students stay on track without overexertion. Adjust the learning environment, offer flexible seating options, quiet corners, or lowering sensory stimuli like noise or lighting can make it easier for students to focus and conserve energy. Record the lessons or instructions. So now we have iPads available, it's much easier. So it allows the students to revisit the content at their own pace. And this is especially helpful for students who fatigue easily and may miss details during live instructions. So for some of our high school kids who may go home early due to fatigue, the recording will be particularly good for them. And allow alternate assessment formats. Offer options like oral presentations, visual projects, or hands-on demonstration to reduce the fatigue associated with the traditional written assessments, because you have to think, what am I assessing? Am I assessing handwriting, or am I assessing the knowledge, what they've learned during these lessons? So use assistive technology such as text-to-speech, word prediction, or digital note-taking. That can support engagement, reduce effort, and allow students to participate fully without exhausting themselves. So collaboration between teachers, between us at DSIDQ, parents and allied health professionals will better enable you to effectively support students with hypotonia and fatigue. By maintaining regular open communication, everyone involved in the students' learning develops a shared understanding of their needs, strengths and challenges. And I was just thinking particularly with our little ones who may have developmental delays, and the physios and the OTs go and visit them in kindies. So they really need a lot of discussion to work out what's happening in both environments. So this collaborative approach not only includes the teachers and the parents, but also our allied health professionals who can provide specialised guidance and practical recommendations tailored to the student's individual profile. Regular sharing of observations and data, including fatigue patterns that we spoke about before, learning progress and responses to classroom strategies is critical to building a comprehensive picture of the student's experience. Detailed information allows the team to identify emerging trends, make informed adjustments, and evaluate the effectiveness of interventions over time. For example, noting when a student tends to become fatigued during the day, which tasks are most challenging, and which strategies appear to support engagement can guide both planning and immediate classroom decisions. And we don't want to make it hard for ourselves. So if you can design a little code or a little tick box thing, because we don't want you to be doing more work. A quick tick and flick's perfect. And consistency across home and school is another key component of effective support. And when the strategies are aligned between the parents and the educators, the children benefit from a predictable and coordinated approach. And this reduces confusion, strengthens the skill development, and maximises the impact of interventions. Coordinated efforts also foster a sense of security for the student and helping them to navigate learning tasks with greater confidence and independence. And ongoing collaboration encourages reflection and shared problem solving for everyone. Team meetings, progress reviews, and informal check-ins provide opportunities to celebrate success, troubleshoot challenges, and adapt strategies as the students grow and their needs evolve, because once we've nailed one thing, something else might crop up. So by working together in a proactive and responsive way, educators, parents, and allied health professionals create an environment where students with hypotonia and fatigue can thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. We'd love to hear from you. So this session's all about learning from each other and building networks. So it's a chance to share practical ways of students that you support with hypotonia or fatigue. So you can type your ideas in the chat or unmute and speak. And even small ideas can be useful for others. So have a think about what signs of fatigue do you look for now that you're a little bit more wiser, and how you respond in the moment. So physically, remember what we said before, this might include slouching, fidgeting, rubbing eyes, or slowing down in the writing tasks. Behaviourally, you might notice reduced attention, withdrawal from group tasks, or irritability. So when you see these signs, you can respond by quietly checking in with the student, offering a short movement break or rest break, or adjusting the task so they can succeed without feeling overwhelmed. How would you adjust tasks, lesson timing, or classroom routines to help students manage energy levels? Just have a think about that. So you can plan tasks in smaller, more manageable steps and allow extra time when you need it. And as I said before, try and schedule those demanding tasks earlier in the day when the kids are less fatigued. And you can use visuals to help them see the sequence of activities when their brains are fatigued. And build in flexible routines, such as allowing the students to change seating positions or use their supportive equipment so they can maintain their focus and comfort. So have a think about, how do you support students to recognise and manage their own fatigue independently? So encourage the students to notice how their body feels and give them simple strategies to use, such as the I need a break card, or moving to a quiet space, or just stretching. So practice this together so they build confidence in recognising early signs of tiredness, because often if you recognise it early, they won't get completely overwhelmed. and over time aim to increase their independence by giving them choice in how they manage their fatigue, so they develop self-awareness and ownership of their own learning, including their fatigue learning. Our reflection. So if you think about your class or your multiple classes, can you think about any of your students fatiguing? Is there anyone that really slumps over their chair, like we say, wraps their ankles around the bottom of their chair? So just have a think about that, and tomorrow when you're in class you may notice. And can I just ask, what strategy resonated with you the most? And what's your take-home message from today? If you could pop in the chat. Okay, that's the presentation, but I'm just going to show you DSIDQ have a new website, and it's a one-stop shop for information and links to all our services, free webinars, fact sheets, downloadable visuals and templates for you to use in the classroom. So we've created a short video to showcase the website. Let's have a quick look. So there's the QR code and the URL to the Education Toolbox. As you see, it's got lots of great things on there. So lucky last, our Ideate consults are a free service where our consultants meet with the teaching staff, either face-to-face or via Teams, and discuss the student's need, formulate a goal, and then provide you with a written report and resources. We can provide consultations to teachers of children with Down syndrome, intellectual disability, or those with complex learning profiles, anyone recorded as receiving supplementary or above on adjustments on NCCD. We can revisit as many times as needed across the school year and service all Education Queensland schools, Catholic, independent from prep and grade 12. Our other service is known as Quest, and it can provide fee-based PDs about a range of topics. This also includes our school-based keyword sign workshop, and the fees are kept to a minimum through subsidies by Department of Education. So to get more detailed knowledge of your student and their fatigue, we recommend an Ideate consult or a Quest consult. Sometimes we pick up things in a busy classroom that are not picked up on, or how fatigue is affecting the student. And we also have our Kindy service, which is run by myself. It's a free service aimed at enhancing capacity for educators working in Kindy approved programs. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this session beneficial and have learned some practical tips from us. Please reach out if you wish to book a consult or require further support.